Hey friends, welcome back to the show. This is Mindset Monday. This is where I share with you the lessons that I've learned over the last nearly 13 years of my life, rebuilding my relationship, getting sober, staying that way, being a good dad, succeeding professionally, becoming a good man. These are the lessons. These are the tidbits of wisdom that I've extracted that I'm trying to share with you in hopes that you can apply some of this stuff to your life to better you. Sometimes you're on the other side of this thing. You're looking at this from a spouse or partner's perspective. And I think this is really helpful. This is the mindset that got me to where I was today. So not to say that you should compare like one to one, but you can compare some of these ideas and think, is my loved one on the right track or not? I'm obviously not the gold standard for that, but I think some of these things are universal. I think a lot of the things that I discuss on the show are shared mindsets from anyone who's trying to grow and change. And not everyone is. And so I think it can be helpful to get some insights anyway, maybe to figure out what your loved one is going through, what they're thinking, or I would hope that you guys sort of listen to this stuff together. I mean, what I really, really hope is that guys like me listen to these episodes as they're going through what I went through this really lonely period in your life where you're not where you want to be and you can't stand living the way that you are right now and you're not sure what to do. And this is the stuff that I wish that I had. I wish I had a mentor, someone who was there for me to really walk me through this stuff. I kind of had to put it together, a lot of this stuff myself, learning bit by bit through various sources and reading and working through recovery and everything else. But I hope that wherever you are, this stuff can be helpful for you. Going to talk about a few different topics today, kind of different than my normal episodes. A lot of times I'll cover like a topic, like one thing. I'm going to cover several today. The Notes app of your phone can be the greatest resource in the entire world for recording your thoughts. It's like a journal that you always have with you. If your brain's anything like mine, a thought can enter and then it's fleeting. And if you don't remember, if you don't write it down, it may be months or never when that thought resurfaces. And sometimes these are profound thoughts. Sometimes these are ideas that we really need to like explore. I think the way that attention capture works today, like in the age of attention. That's what companies are after these days. They're really, really good at getting us to hop from one thing to another or keep us focused on things that just really aren't that important. And so for the profound thoughts that we have that really matter, we have to be intentional about taking time out and recording that stuff and then revisiting it at a later time. That's what I've done. And I'm going to walk you through everything through my last December. And we're going to talk about some of the interesting insights I had and some of the things I think are useful to everyone. They were useful to me, so I think that'd be interesting to you too. But let's get this out of the way. Let's get some formalities out of the way first. Hey, we've got a website, twfo.com, where you can find out about everything that we offer. We've got a program called Reclaiming You that is purpose-built for spouses and partners to reclaim their lives and to grow and to change. If you're ever wondering, like, how did these two figure this out? Particularly, how did Paige figure this out? The program is how. It was built with us alongside a licensed therapist. That's what it achieves. You can find out about that there. We've also got a free, totally free Facebook community. You can find out about that on our website. Just click on it. You have to be a listener of the podcast to get in there. We would love to have you come on and join. There's thousands of other people that are going through the very same things that you're going through. Now, if you are someone like me who's in recovery, it's not for you. I'm working on something for us, like a space for us. For now, let's hang out in the comment sections of our social media, YouTube, wherever you're watching this, Instagram, whatever. But that's on there. We've got new merch. We've got like water bottles and we've got stickers. We've got recovery rocks. If you don't know what a recovery rock is, let me see if I can block my face out. Yep, there it goes. It's got our logo on the front and on the back it says, "Thank you for being my rock." Really cool way to acknowledge the journey that someone else has walked with you through recovery. So often, spouses and partners are forgotten. This is a really cool way to acknowledge what they've been through, what they've sacrificed, what they've experienced. It's a way of saying, I see you. We've got hoodies and t-shirts and all kinds of new stuff. And if you want to support the show and rock the merch of your favorite podcast, we would really appreciate it. It's a good way to support the show. We've also got a link in our social media profiles where if you think our merch is ugly and you're like, I would never wear that crap, but you do appreciate what we do and you would like to chip in and help with some of the expenses we have, you can buy us a coffee. You can give as much or as little as you like, or you can give nothing. And guess what? We will love you all the same. Makes no difference to us. Sponsorships. SoberLink. SoberLink is the sponsor of our show. SoberLink's been an amazing sponsor. Why do we believe in SoberLink? Is because I think it is the world's greatest accountability device. This is a device that helps people rebuild trust. It just so happens to be disguised as a breathalyzer. If you're someone who struggles with alcohol and you've tried everything, I bet you haven't tried this yet. I bet this is the one thing that you haven't really given a shot or a fair shake. Maybe you've done some degree of accountability, but not like this. What's different about SoberLink is that you set up a network of people that get notified every time you use the device. It's often said that trust is lost in buckets and it's rebuilt in droplets. Well, every test with SoberLink is a drop back into that bucket of proverbial trust that has to be rebuilt over a very long period of time. I did this the old-fashioned way. SoberLink is something that can help expedite that, especially if you're really on the outs with somebody and they're just fed up. This is a great way of taking accountability for your own recovery while also letting them in on it, which is what they want more than anything in the world. Man, they just want to be involved. SoberLink helps people do that. It's also like you can't screw with this thing, so you can trust the data coming from it is accurate. It's got military-grade facial recognition technology, and it's tamper-proof. You can't screw with it. So spouses and partners and your kids or whoever else you want to set up in the contact can trust that you're doing the deal. So awesome in that regard. Helps hold you accountable to not drinking, gives them the visibility and the transparency that they desire more than anything, and it helps restore trust in that way. Since you're an awesome listener of our show, SoberLink will send you a $100 Visa gift card to help with whatever expenses you have at this time of the year. You could apply this to the monthly plan cost of SoberLink. You could just do whatever with it. You could pay your water bill. You could buy Tufo merch. You could spend it at Dick's Sporting Goods. Whatever you want to do, they will do that because you're an awesome listener of this show. Just go to soberlink.com/wheels to find out more. And no more upfront costs on these things. It used to be you would have to buy a device and you had a monthly plan cost, kind of like your cell phone, but they've done away with that. You can just rent these things now. You can just rent them for as little as $20 a month. I think it's actually $19 a month when you sign up for a 1-year plan, which is what you need to do. Sign up for a 1-year plan. 1 year is like the minimum, I think, for what it would take to reestablish some semblance of trust in a relationship. Get it for 1 year, $19 a month. Find out more by going to soberlink.com/wheels. Okay. These are some lessons that I think that I've had to learn the hard way. Some of them anyway. Some of them are just insights into stuff that you're probably really familiar with that you've never really looked at this way. Talking about relationships and growth and boundaries. Boundaries are the first one. Like, I think boundaries might be the most misunderstood concept in the entire world. When people set boundaries, I think they often look at them very optimistically as like, ooh, this is the thing that's going to fix my relationship. That's usually not at all what boundaries do. Boundaries are not a way to get someone else to change. But I think that's how we often look at them whenever we approach them. We get really excited about boundaries. We often hear this from other people. They'll tell us, you need to set some boundaries whenever we come to them with some serious problem in our relationship. And we think that that response from them is like an answer or a solution. That's not how boundaries work. And you're probably not going to hear this and listen. You're going to have to learn the hard way. I'm going to read this thing I wrote. I wrote this. This is not AI by any means. This, like, I always feel like I have to preface that now because so much of the content that you consume is AI. This is not AI. The stuff we do is not AI. These are our own thoughts. So I'm proud of this because it sounds like AI could have written it, but it's not. This is actually just me. I'm not often proud of things that I write, but I am of this one. Here's what it says. Boundaries don't work. Not usually anyway, at least not the way people hope they will. Emotionally immature people who aren't committed to growth don't rise to the occasion. They get defensive. They get sneaky. They get better at hiding the behavior that forced the boundary in the first place. What boundaries often are in reality are a step on the road to realizing how little your favorite person actually cares and then leaving them. There, I said it. You'll discover that your asks are incredibly small, the kind any considerate person would have stopped immediately, the same way you would if the roles were reversed. When they refuse, mock you, or minimize why they matter, it exposes what you've quietly known but avoided admitting. This relationship isn't going to work, but you have to try. Boundaries are how we prove it to ourselves. They pull toxicity into the light, and they provide clarity. They make incompatibility impossible to ignore. People look at boundaries like an optimistic fix. Most of the time, they're not. They are not what saves the relationship. They're what finally show you the truth you were not ready to face. I think that came from a place when I was thinking about boundaries in general. I see this in comment sections a lot. I see it in our community. I see this thrown around in reels and social media from creators and whatnot. People talk about boundaries like there's some kind of magical fix. Boundaries don't fix other people. Boundaries protect you. But we don't usually see it that way. I think that we're ever optimistic in our partner or our relationship. And we think that the boundary is something that we need so that they can see how serious we are and it will force them to change. For instance, when I stop giving them access to me, when I leave the room or I leave the home or whatever it might be, it will upset them so badly that they'll have no choice but to stop the harmful behavior because we're assuming that they want to be with us that badly. But that's not true. But in the beginning, no one would believe that. You have to see it for yourself. So what boundaries typically end up being when we set them is this very painful process of seeing how little someone actually cares. Because it's impossible to think that they wouldn't do the same thing that you would do if you were in their shoes. If someone told you, I'm going to do XYZ if you keep doing this, what would you do? You would probably stop the behavior. You would stop doing whatever it is that's harming them because you care about that person. You care about that relationship. You value it deeply. So you would stop. You would stop doing whatever that is. But remember, they aren't you. And that's the painful part that boundaries often help us see is that once we set boundaries, all they really are is a way to pull people out of this optimistic hope place of their mind when they see the reality that this person doesn't care that much. And it's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking to watch. They are not some kind of like communication strategy. I think in some ways they're like a willingness test. And healthy people don't need repeated explanations over and over and over that this hurts me. I don't like this. Please stop doing this. Most people feel the impact and they adjust accordingly. That's what most people do in healthy relationships who are emotionally intelligent, who care about their partner, who aren't selfish. But unhealthy people don't typically change their behavior. They just change their tactics. They will, when you instill this boundary, what they're going to do is get defensive and get snarky and petty and angry, and they're going to get really sneaky. They're going to hide the behavior more. But their last thing they will do is actually change their behavior. Boundaries, I think they reveal what you've always been there, but I think that most people are just really unwilling to see or to admit to themselves. I think that we secretly hope that they'll wake the other person up. I think that it's just not usually the case. That's really, really rare, I think. So it's tough. I think that boundaries are almost diagnostic in that sense. I think that like I mentioned, they're sort of a step along the way to realize how little your favorite person actually cares about how you feel about certain things. But you have to try. You have to try. I think it's important that you try for a few reasons. One, as we mentioned, that some people do change their behaviors when they realize how much they're affecting other people. Two, I think that boundaries are important in every relationship in your life. If my guess is correct, you're probably something like me and most other people that you don't really have boundaries because we weren't taught how this sort of thing works. When you're a child, you're not really allowed to have boundaries. Like when we were growing up, it's your parents do tell you what to do and you have to do what you're told or else, right? But as we grow up and we gain agency and we become more independent, we start to kind of operate on our own. And so my guess is that you haven't really had boundaries, and they're important to learn. It's important to understand how they work and how they can protect you, because I think that every healthy relationship has some form of boundaries. Maybe not even completely verbalized, but you kind of know what they are in your relationship. So it's important to advocate for yourself. This is an important life lesson. So important for reason one. Reason two, I think three is, I think that for so many people, they will become the thing that finally gets you to the point where you're ready to look at the reality of this situation. I hate to seem so pessimistic about this, but it's true. No one will take anyone's advice to leave a bad situation. No one. That's not the way that this lesson works. This is one of those unteachable lessons. You have to see it for yourself. It has to be, you have to be convinced. Other people can't be convinced in order for you to take action. You have to be convinced. And oftentimes it's this process of having your heart broken time and time and time again as these boundaries are violated, ultimately being part of what it takes for people to get out of really abusive and bad situations. Difficult, very, very difficult. But they are not necessarily a way to save the relationships. They're a way to give you clarity. So I think boundaries are not a failure. They just don't save really unhealthy relationships. They save you from being blind to them. That's really what they are. And that's a difficult one, but it's very true. I see a lot of stuff written about boundaries, but not this kind of stark reality of boundaries. And I think that people need to know this going in. I do. I think that you need to kind of understand what they are, because otherwise boundaries are often used as a way to manipulate or control other people's decisions and their behavior. And that's not the point of boundaries. It's just not. Boundaries are there to protect you. Remember, a proper boundary is when you change nothing and I take action. I will do X and you have to change nothing. You change nothing. You do you, but I will do X. And it's just kind of like this hope that when we say that, they're going to go, well, I don't want you to do that. What would I have to do to make you feel better about this? What do I need to change? And that's the difficulty. There's no way to make other people do that. They have to see it for themselves. Maybe, just maybe, they are so affected by your boundary that it does make them wake up and see the light, but it's highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. That is the truth of boundaries, unfortunately, anyway. Okay, the next idea here. I was at a treatment center actually, and it's interesting when you're around people who are in early recovery, like really early recovery. I mean, like days or weeks, or in many cases, people who aren't there because they want to be there. They're often there because other people want them to be there. But there are some other people that are there, and like you're there in treatment to learn. That's what you're doing. You're separated from your environment, which is good. You're given a ton of education. You're given tools. You're given a place to sometimes medically detox. And then you're sent back out into the world. What's wild is that while we're there, we're given so much good information about what success looks like if we want to keep what we've gotten there, which is sobriety. We've gotten a lot of our health back. We have a positive mindset for the first time in a very long time. But there's this part of our minds that wants to hang on to the old way of doing things. And I think this is even more true of people who are still doing what they're doing. Like if you're someone who abuses substances and you do it on a very regular basis, it's probably going to cause problems in your life, at the very least with your relationships, possibly with the law, possibly with your career, your finances, whatever it might be. It's going to cause issues. But what's wild is that we will claim that it's working. It's like, no, this works for me. Like, this is who I am. Maybe it doesn't work for you, but I'm different. This works for me. Then I wonder, well, if it works, then why do we ever try to stop? If this is working so well, then why do we ever try to stop? It's an interesting question. This came up in the treatment center. And it was like, because what was interesting about me, I know this, I'll speak for myself, but I've seen this in so many other people, is with your life burning down around you, with everything going wrong, I would have sat there and been like, this is fine. I got this. If you've ever seen that meme of that dog, cartoon dog, and he's sitting at the coffee table with a cup of coffee and his kitchen's on fire and it says, this is fine. Like, that is the essence of people that struggle with addiction. This is fine. Everything's fine. It's crazy how much we can minimize things. But I thought it was wild that if it's working, then why did we ever try to stop? Like, if something truly works, you don't try to stop doing it. You don't try to escape it. This has kind of been bothering me. Like, why is this? Like, this is who I am and this is what works for me. But then in the same breath, like, we try to quit drugs or porn or chaos or whatever it might be. So if it's working so well, why do we ever try to stop? And I think about, like, what's the psychology behind this? So I started to read more and more about this. And this is good old fashioned cognitive dissonance, which is when your beliefs and your behaviors don't necessarily match. Like, there's this spread, this delta between the two of them. And so what we do typically is instead of changing the behavior, we just defend the belief, even if it's wrong. It's wild how we do this. This is fascinating to me, but we explain away harm because admitting the truth would require us to change. And I think when a behavior becomes so tied to your identity, changing it feels like a threat to who you are. It doesn't feel like you're just changing your sock color or something like that. It's a stupid example, but like something really arbitrary. Like it's more about who you are. So people don't just say this works for me because it actually works. I think that we say that because the alternative is so terrifying that we don't want to explore it. It's like your mind's way of protecting you from the most painful idea that kind of lives in the back of your mind without you even realizing it. But there's self-justification, there's cognitive dissonance, and I think there's this idea of identity fusion, which is kind of what we're talking about here. Change doesn't just mean change. Change means loss. Change means like loss of comfort, loss of identity, loss of certainty, predictability. And that's what I was fearing more than anything, because I was under the belief anyway, when I was actively using back in 2000, God, I did for 10 years. But the last 18 months that was the worst period for our marriage and our relationship because that was the lead up to our daughter being born. That was like Paige's pregnancy and the first 9 months of her life. That was the ultimate worst part of it. But the couple years leading up to that, like I knew for a very long period of time that I needed to grow up. I needed to stop doing this stuff. Like I could look around at the people that I really admired in life. And a lot of them came from my professional experience. Like there were people who were really successful, like financially successful. And they also had like really strong family units. Like they worked like a partnership, like the husband and wife, and their kids like had their shit together and like they knew where they were going to college. And like my house was nothing like that. And that was like everything that I aspired to, was like the complete opposite of what I grew up in. Like many of us, like I wanted more. I wanted more for my life and for like my family. Like now it's my turn. I want this to be better. I want this to be so much better. And like that's what I aspired to. And I could look at their lives and I would think, okay, in order for me to get there, what would have to change? And there weren't too many things. I could look at them and be like, well, do they work hard? Yeah, but I work really hard too. Like we've got the same credentials, like the same degrees and like most of the same work experience. And like, I've got a wife. Okay, check. I've got kids. Check. Okay. Do they party like me? Absolutely not. Like not at all. Like I never saw these people drinking. I never could imagine them ever using drugs or alcohol. And that was the thing. I knew that was the thing that would have to change, but I thought that I was different. I thought that my mental makeup was such that I was just better at managing it than the average bear. And maybe there's some truth to that because the amounts that I was using, like you might be a really high functioning person who struggles with substances and they're out there, but you're kind of lying to ourselves. Like I think that we all are whenever we say that. Like what does high functioning mean? I think what we do in those moments is like we kind of put like a cap on our abilities. Like we're high functioning, but just imagine how well we could be doing if we didn't have this issue with substances. Like imagine how much better our relationships could be, how much your like earning capacity increases, how much more your kids would have their shit together if you were more involved in their lives. Like that's the stuff. Like I think that when we talk about high functioning, it's such a way of settling. It's like, yeah, but you can only function to like this degree. But in my mind, I thought that I was just better at doing it than most people. Like I'm just different. I'm better than the average bear. I'm just like Superman at using substances and still doing everything that everyone else, you know, that the world rewards us for and like applauds us for. And so I think I looked at my life and I had this thought, like this works for me. But then in my private moments, I would try to stop. Like secretly, I would try to stop. I wouldn't tell people about this because if I did that, then that would be the same thing as admitting I had a problem. So I try to do it on my own, which is where this thought comes from, which is crazy. Like if it's working so well, then why do we ever try to stop? The fact that we try to stop something that is quote unquote working so well is proof that it's not working. But it's too tough to look at that and see that for what it is, which is this dissonance between who we want to be, who we currently are, and the identity fusion that we have with this substance. And the idea of stopping it isn't just stopping a substance, because it makes perfect sense that, okay, this isn't actually working. But that's too hard to admit, because that would require so many other admissions and that would require so much change. So this is kind of for spouses and partners too. Like, just remember this, that if it's working so well for them, whenever they gaslight you and they use Darvo and they try to defend and minimize and justify and explain away this major problem that is obviously a problem, then why is it that they try to cut back? Why is it that they try to manage? Because it's not working. Don't ever forget that. It's not working. It's just tough to stop. I understand why. I just explained all the reasons why. I get it. I know why. But just remember that in those moments that it's not working, or else we wouldn't try to stop it. Very simple. All right, last one. I'd like to take like quotes and ideas that I live by, and I try to look at the inverse side of them. You can find some of the best ideas buried in sayings and quotes that you've lived by your entire life. One of them is, emotions buried alive never die. We've talked about this in the show more times than I can count. This quote is actually attributed to Freud, I think. It's Freud or Jung. I can't remember. It was one of the classic like fathers of psychology. But the inverse, so there's one extreme, which is emotions buried alive never die. We all know what this means. It comes up in our show all the time. You can suppress all you want. You can pretend like you've gotten away and like you've dodged all of the pain and dealing with all the crap from your past. But at some point in the future, this stuff comes back like zombies. Emotions buried alive never die. They will come back at some point to haunt you. But there's an extreme to that. There's an inverse to that. Like if that's extreme one, then extreme two is emotions that you won't let die will bury you alive. The reason I have this thought, this is maybe specific to me, but it could be specific to you as well. If you're a listener of our show, and you have been for many, many years, first of all, thank you. We appreciate it. Like, your support means everything. A big part of the reason we keep doing this is for people like you, listeners or viewers like you. But Paige and I found something out. So we thought that we had avoided everything. Extreme one, like this is before we started the show. Extreme one is that emotions buried alive never die. They will come back to haunt you. Remember, I was like 4 years sober when Paige really started to go through the worst, like depression and like anxiety and all this stuff coming back up from the depths. It surfaced when I was like 4 years sober. Like, you can't outrun it. But the inverse of that is kind of what's happened in the 3 years since we've started the show. We're in year 4 now. Yeah, September of this year, the show will be 4 years old. Emotions that you won't let die will bury you alive. And I think what this means is that there's a time and a place to feel your feelings, and no one disputes that. You have to name them and understand them, and you have to let them teach you something. But there's also a time to let go. So if you've been a listener of our show for a really long time, and you've effectively gotten through the worst of whatever you've experienced, you need to move on. Like, you need to walk forward. Unless there's something you're getting from this content that is deeper than that, there is something to be said about re-traumatizing yourself over and over and over. And I should say that everyone's journey will look a little bit different, and it'll be of different length. So for some people, you may process this stuff rather quickly, within a year or so, and you're good. And revisiting this stuff isn't really doing you a lot of favors. Like, you've processed it, you've felt it, you've named it, you've learned the lessons, and then you go live your life. You go do the things that you want to do. Maybe you get into a new relationship. Maybe you really get to know yourself. You go travel the world, you start a new business, you really explore your interests and your creative side. And like, you do all these wonderful things with your life. But if you sit there just thinking about this stuff day in, day out, nonstop forever, this stuff will bury you alive. This is what we found. We found that, like, in a couple years after doing the show and talking about this stuff, like, we've learned the lessons here. But there's kind of like a secondary effect of continually bringing this stuff up and exploring this stuff, where Paige and I would have to remind ourselves, like we have a really good marriage. Like, for as much as we talk about the past, like, we've, like, I have done everything that a human can do to make up for that stuff and to be a different person. I've changed completely. I'm 180 from the person that I was back then. But if you keep bringing it up, you kind of forget that. And you kind of forget you've come as far as you have. And you can kind of keep yourself stuck in that old place. So I just want to caution that for people that Paige and I, like when we started the show, like it's never been our intention that you're here forever, which is also why we want to shift our content to be more about wisdom and life lessons and bring on guests that have interesting ideas for the next 10 or 20 years of your life. And it's not just incredibly hyper specific to this very thing, right? This is going to be part of your story, but it doesn't need to be your whole story forever. I think it's important that you recognize that. Don't keep your trauma on life support. Don't like keep re-traumatizing yourself over and over in the name of healing. I think that there's a time and a place to feel your feelings and to process through the stuff. And for some people, this will take years. All right. So if you're someone and like, you know, that you're just not there yet, it's okay. Like it might take quite some time. This could take many years, but I think that there are also people that feel like they know that it's time to move on. And I just want to say that you have permission to do that. It's okay. It's okay to walk forward. It's okay to never listen to our stuff and unfollow us. And like, if this brings you back to that place, then like, remember, like emotions buried alive never die, but emotions that you won't let die will also bury you alive. They prevent you from living your fullest because there is a time and a place that this comes to an end and you walk forward and you revisit it sometimes, but it's not everything anymore. And I think there is a time and a place to let this stuff die, but only after you've learned what it was meant to teach you. Don't give up too soon because it will resurface. It will come back. We learned this lesson the hard way, but there are seasons in life where constantly revisiting this stuff is actually worse than just leaving it behind and in the past. Like it can feel productive and it can feel deep, but at the end of the day, like it just keeps you stuck. It keeps you stuck. I want to be very open about that with people. And like from a like creator perspective and like a downloads and numbers and subscriber perspective, like I'm not doing myself any favors. I recognize that, but I don't care. That's not why we do this. I care about you on the other side of this. One thing that analytics can never measure is the human impact that you have. And I think that we have amongst people that do what we do, the highest impact. And that's what matters to us, truly. That's what matters, is that you walk forward with a better quality of life. Even if we've never met you or never heard about it, that's what we want. So sorry to all the sponsors out there. Whatever. It's fine. Okay. Acceptance is the answer is the last one I've got here. This is something that, man, I lived by. This was the most revolutionary idea that I'd ever really internalized. Acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. It is literally tattooed on my rib cage. Acceptance is the answer. This was everything to me. This is everything to me. This is kind of in the same realm of some of the Stoic ideas from like Epictetus and Seneca and Marcus Aurelius and some of the Stoic philosophy that like, I have to give you permission to upset me. Like my happiness in life is in direct proportion to my level of acceptance. When my level of acceptance exceeds, I guess, my expectations, I'm happy. When my expectations exceed my level of acceptance, I am very disturbed about the world. I can get really bent up about a lot of things and get angry when I feel like things ought to be different. But acceptance taught me a lesson that has made me like the most resilient person that I could ever imagine being. Like I have an insane pain tolerance for emotional pain and for pain that others can cause me. I have an insane pain tolerance for my work and my ability to like dig and drive. Acceptance can get you a long ways in life. Like when someone has done something terrible that's upset me, like in those moments, like I have to remind myself, like when I'm upset by some person, place, thing, or situation, like some fact in my life, I have to understand like this is the way things are supposed to be right now. This is reality. And I have a choice. I can bitch about it or I can accept it and do something to move forward. And I learned a lot this is how I've stayed sober. Like in a nutshell, this was like the most powerful concept that I've ever achieved. I used for a million reasons, but one of the biggest ones was that I had trouble like with the world. I had trouble with stress and with traffic and with customers and like with the amount of emails I got every day and like with you name it, like taxes and like insurance and like shit that was inevitable, like a fact of life I hated. And every time I would get bent up and like angry about it and wrapped around the axle about it, I would work myself up so much that I had to put something in my body to calm down. And it could be like all kinds of shit that's out of my control. Like I used because I had an inability to accept things that were outside of my control. Acceptance was the silver bullet cure all for that. And I learned so much about myself in the world and finding peace and contentment, even in the midst of a storm, with this idea of acceptance. And I hope that you do learn that lesson too. But there is a dark side to this, is that acceptance can become the problem to all of your answers. You can become so good at this that you can live in fucking chaos and be okay with it. You can live in the sickest situations with people around you. Like you can quite literally find peace and contentment in a home with someone who struggles mightily with addiction, who sleeps around, who does all this crap. You can find peace and contentment in this. But is that healthy? Like we have to ask ourselves, like at the end of the day, like, is that what we should be doing? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think that that's the lesson I learned the hard way, is that you can create this inner citadel where when you can't get what you want, you teach yourself to want what you can get. Let me say that again, because I know I screwed that up. When you can't get what you want out of life, you have to teach yourself to want what you can get. And this is a way of lowering your expectations of everything in your life so low that quite literally nothing can accept you, or nothing can disturb you. And this is like this extreme example of acceptance. But what I found after doing this for the better part of a decade with a really particular situation in my life, and it's my career, and I run a family business as well. So it's families involved with that. And some of those family relationships became really, really difficult over the years. Addiction is part of that story as well. So it was like narcissism and crazy behaviors. A lot of the same stuff that you guys deal with every day. If you ever wondered, how does he know so much about this crap? It's because I wasn't just one, I've also dealt with one. So I've got it from both sides. I know what it's like to be a wheelie. I also know what it's like to be the reason wheelies show up. That's why I have this perspective. But anyway, I taught myself to be totally cool in this. But what it involves sometimes, because naturally you will have the thought like, man, why can't they just behave differently? Or like, why can't my career just look differently? Like, maybe I don't have to deal with this at all. Occam's razor is a scientific principle that the simplest solution tends to be the correct one. And I've lived by that for a very long time. I think it to be true in many, many cases. That's why it's called a razor. This is a truth, an axiom, if you will. Not always, but most of the time, the simplest solution tends to be the correct one. Acceptance can cloud that out. So if you are in, for instance, if you're in a very, very toxic job that pays you very well, you can think to yourself, how can I do enough breath work or journaling or meditation or, I already said journaling, but like get enough insights, listen to enough podcasts, read enough books. Like, how can I do all these things to make myself okay internally every day? Or how about I find a new job? That simple answer is clouded out by this massive capacity for acceptance of terrible situations. So if you're in a bad relationship, that one that you have to go to therapy for and journal and, talk to friends about and meditate and pray and do breath work, and maybe you're on medications and all this stuff just so you can tolerate this crazy effing situation you found yourself in. What about the answer that you use living in your head all the time that you just always shoot down, which is, maybe I should seriously consider getting out of this. What would it look like? What do I have to do next? What's the next thing I would have to do? Consult an attorney. Okay. And then what? And then I'd have to look at real estate. And then what? I might have to get a new position that would pay for all these things. Okay. And then what? Those answers are generally the way. This level of acceptance and this pain tolerance you have clouds out some of the simplest solutions. So it's tough because on one hand, I don't want to rob anybody of the lesson that I learned and going to the extreme of what acceptance is and finding what that inner citadel looks like for you, and having this insane capacity for pain tolerance and resilience and perseverance and dealing with, pain. But the danger of that is that you can become so good at it that things will never change. And it becomes so much work and upkeep to stay in that state, when the alternative is, let me just make a simple solution to this problem I've created almost to solve the problem that I had to begin with. It can become its own set of problems. So I've still got this ability to manage all this pain, but on the other side, I've made some simple solutions that have made the problems so much easier, and have saved me so much time and mental gymnastics every single day. So I don't want to rob you of that lesson, but I also want to remind you that you can't stay there forever. Like, learn the lesson, but once again, don't stay there forever, because there is no end to that. Like, acceptance at the end of the day should create clarity, not complacency. But I think for me anyway, I think it required me to constantly explain away my own discomfort, and like, that's not wisdom. That's just fear wearing like this calm mask, I guess. I was scared to make some serious changes in my life, and man, I don't know how much longer I could have done that. Maybe forever, but the amount of work it took every single day to find peace became just so much, when the simple solution was the correct one. So acceptance is the answer to all my problems, but acceptance can sometimes be the problem, stands in the way of all your simple answers. So I think something we talk about on this show a lot is like two thoughts at once, right? It's kind of that black and white, or it's not black and white, it's that gray area thinking. And I hope to help show you what that looks like what we do every day to kind of achieve that, like holding two thoughts at the same time, retaining the ability to still function, as what F. Scott Fitzgerald, I believe, said is the mark of high intelligence. And we have really, really smart listeners. But sometimes we can be so smart that we're stupid. So those are my ideas. Those are my insights here from the last month. These are fun. I enjoyed this, like really enjoyed this. I hope that you did too. These are quick takeaways. Let me grab one of those, go back and listen. Like journal on them yourself. Like, take these ideas and see what they mean to you. See what they see what stages you are here, because I'm sure that some of you are well on your way to becoming masters at dealing with pain. I'm sure some of you are well on your way to learning a hard lesson about boundaries. I'm sure that some of you are well on your way to discovering that you can't stay in this state of like healing forever. At some point you have to walk forward. And I think that what will come of that, journaling that stuff, talking about it, will rise some amazing insights. Today is at the point, I think, where we stop saying, how was your new year? It is the new year. And with that comes a ton of reflection and thinking. And this is a great head start to that. We're going to have a year in review episode very soon. And we've got a really exciting year upcoming. I'm going to bring on more guests. I really want to do that. I think that I've kind of identified some people now that I think could add some value to the show. Been very, very picky about who we even consider for the show. I probably turned down, I would say 10 to 20, depending on sometimes it's busier than others, 10 to 20 requests per week for people that want to come on the show. But if there's no value there, then I don't think it's worth it. It's not worth the conversation. There are a lot of people that run podcasts, and they kind of find themselves in this loop where they're just bringing on guests, and those conversations aren't really meaningful. Like, I want to be proud of every single episode that we put out, and the conversations especially that we have. I want to be proud of those. Like, they have their place, and they encompass this idea, and the person that we brought on was perhaps the best at thinking about that kind of stuff. And I want to bring on some more heavy hitters this year. Like, I want to bring on some authors, people that you've heard of. I want to bring on some past guests again, and to discuss some new ideas as we've had time to sit with them, and probably you have too. I want to bring on some people that I never thought that we would ever get access to, and I'm working on that. I'm really excited for this next year. Like, truly, this is the year that I hope that the show takes on a whole new light and it becomes massive. That's my goal here. As I'm kind of cheating and telling you about my aspirations and my dreams and my resolutions for 2026. I hope that this thing just gets massive. And I hope that along the way you change and you grow and you learn and you're able to apply the stuff to your lives, and we do this thing together. So can't wait to see what that looks like. I hope this has been helpful for you, this episode. And I can't thank you enough for joining me. It's always awesome. I love sitting here talking to the camera. Like, it's strange. talking to a camera, I I've gotten to the point now where like I visualize that camera, but at the same time I'm visualizing like all of you and like thinking about you. I'm thinking I see you. It's really cool. So I don't. It took long enough staring into the void of this lens, but now it's like it's become this thing where it represents something so much deeper than that. It represents all of you and like your lives and what you're trying to do. And I'm just desperately trying to do what I can to help. Oh, also in-person experiences is a thing that I'm after this year. So that involves workshops and meetups and retreats and stuff like that. And like really taking the strides right now to make sure that that's a reality in 2026. That's what we want to do. In-person experiences is where it's at. I'm so over the virtual stuff. I'm over it, man. Completely. And I think that most people are. In-person experiences, like back to the basics, like really connecting with people, like transformative experiences. That's what we want to do. We want to find a way to make that a reality by going to some of our top cities where we have listeners and doing it here where we're from in North Texas, and like workshops, retreats, sessions with couples, sessions with individuals, you name it. Like that's what we truly want to do. Making a difference makes us happy. Hopefully it makes you happy too. But stay tuned. Looking forward to this. As always, thanks for joining me. Until next time, I'm Matt, and I'll see you.